So, this pastor, things began. It started with Ilya Anatoka Kazi, who was closing his shoe shop at around 10 p.m. in the other night. And then he would come via my house, saying he wants to see how I'm doing, So he would come along. At times he would be like, nataka kukuletea nyama. And then he would buy some meat and pass by. That is when I introduced the habit of masturbation. In 2014, after now watching the pornographic movie series for a period of time. I think that's when I got now into masturbation. I think when I was in class 8, that is when I introduced the habit of masturbation. In 2014, after now watching the pornographic movie series for a period of time. I think that's when I got now into masturbation. So now in Form 3, it was still a habit. But then at this point I'd stopped watching the pornographic movies because I was even serving the Christian Union and all that, but then I couldn't stop masturbating.
So you were still serving the Christian Union, but the masturbation was still your routine?
Yeah. Remember, I'm still born again, so and I've masked everything. Like no one would realize this lady was doing anything ill. No one. So I wanted to be alone. Because I remember there were times I couldn't go to church. I would wake up in the morning on a Sunday morning, dress up, go out. Then I'll spend the entire day walking around town, chilling all alone. And then in the evening I would come back home and sleep. Then on Monday I would wake up and go to school. So I came up with an excuse to my parents that I think this place is quite far from school. So I want to stay somewhere that I can use minimum time to rush to school and be able to study. Because, it was true because from school to my home using like an hour or so in the morning, and in the evening, In the evening, actually, we were one of the students that were coming from far, so we had the permission to leave the school early. So I was able to convince them at that period, and they accepted that I can rent a house somewhere in the market where we had the school. So I rented the house.
At this time you were in Form 3?
Form 3, yeah.
At what age?
That is, can I remember? It is 2017, so I was 17 years, because I was born in 2000. Yeah. So now the age of 17, yes. So they accepted and I rented a place near the school. But then, at this point, I'd been serving in a certain church around home for a few weeks, like a few weeks or months, I think months, because I was already even the youth coordinator. So, but then I remember I got some, we had some few misunderstandings with some few youths in the church because of something they couldn't stop doing. And I was so angry at them. And I stopped. Like I felt I couldn't continue serving in this church, so I stopped. And from that point, I rented the house and moved in, and I started, the new life all alone. But then at this point, I remember I still hate myself. That is something I cannot forget. I didn't care about myself at all. I couldn't care about what I think I did. And I hated the most the things that I could do because I felt to people like that nothing good could come out of me. I felt like I couldn't even cook for people because I felt like cooking for people, that my food, my cooking would be terrible. Like no one would love it because nothing good can come out of me. So I started staying alone. So from where I was staying, on the opposite side of the road, there was a church, a KAG church. So they were having these fellowships every Monday night. So I met them and I started attending the fellowships.
At this time you're staying alone now, you have rented?
Staying alone, yeah. So I started attending the fellowships. But at this point, there happened to be one pastor, I don't know if I should mention his name, but I there came a point in time where he wanted to open another church. So since I needed somewhere to fellowship, I decided to join him. And we began the church, and it started growing so well. So at this point, I was still serving in church. When I get to get back to it, I remember, or I get to know that I loved God, but I hadn't understood this thing called salvation well, and the seriousness in it, and more so, I had things holding me back from it. So because I'm still serving in the church, and behind the scenes, I'm masturbating. Behind the scenes, I'm still stealing, I'm still lying and all that. So I still serve in the church, come back home, and then so when we opened the church, I was a worshiper in the church, like I was a minister in the church, because I would teach Bible studies in the morning, I would worship throughout the entire service. I became an interpreter, like I was like an elder in the church. I held things that an elder could hold, because they could trust me with the church money. I could trust me with so many things in the church, like I used to do, like everything. I remember one day even saying, it was like, Ruth, if you are over 18 years, ningekufanya mzee wa kanisa, I was so committed, to be honest. But there were things I didn't know how to get over, and then I couldn't talk to anyone about them. Like I couldn't open them to anyone, because still I trusted no one. So I continued serving. But then it happened that as we are serving, so this pastor was a hyena. He wasn't the man he seemed to be. So, but then I was on a point. Okay, before I said that, so we started relating in a manner that I wouldn't say was godly. That wasn't so good, because at times it started actually slowly. It started with Ilya Anatoka Kazi, who was closing his shoe shop at around 10 p.m. in the other night, and then he would come via my house, saying he wants to see how I'm doing, So he would come along, and then he would go home, and then the following day he would do the same. At times he would be like, nataka kukuletea nyama, and then he would buy some meat and pass by. So he did that severally. His name is James, by the way. So James did this thing severally, and now the more he does it, the more closer we get. Remember, this person we're serving with in the same altar. I'm a very committed member of the church, so we're interacting so much with him. And I have my own self. I hate myself. Something, I'm at a point I don't even understand what the term love means, because I don't love. The only thing I know to do is to hate. I was that person, I would meet you today, but then I realized you have this kind of a weakness, and that was all. I'd shut you from there. So, this pastor, things began. At some point I had this friend from home. She was, her name is Pamela. Pamela was a very good friend. When I was in Form 3, she came to Form 1, but she was going through issues in her life. So I thought I could help, though I was deceived. I was deceived because Pam wasn't a very straight girl as I thought she was. She had a hidden side of her that I hadn't seen. So she used to say that her grandmother locks her outside, her grandmother, beats her, her grandmother insults her, her grandmother does this and that. She's an orphan. So we talked with her and her sister, and I accepted to have her in, because I'm staying alone, so I could help. But then
you are all studying in one school?
Yeah, in the same school. So I helped, and she came in. So at least at this point, now the pastor wasn't coming so much. So even though at times he would come, because we even started serving the same church with her. So at times he would come over to say hi, go home. So we stayed with Pam for a few months, I'll say, yeah. But then issues began. She hasn't paid her school fees, but then a grandmother comes to school, and she's like, Pamela disappeared, Pamela did this, Pamela did that. And then they began. So there's this side of her that I didn't know. So it spoiled my image as well, because remember, I wasn't relating with men. Even though, like, even these friends that I had, they were friends in school. After school, that's where I could put the full stop. So, but now, the stories began that Ruth and Pamela are prostituting in this town, are doing this, are gotten in clubs drinking. And personally, I actually don't even know how a pub looks like, even at my age. He was able to convince me to follow him to the room. With Ilya, nothing would happen. We are born again, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, if you could do all the things you do when we are alone, what is it that you cannot do when we're in that room? So tulisumbwana ile sana, because I really wanted to do it. He really wanted to have sex with me. But then I couldn't. Like, I was like, what do I tell God after this?